It is normal for the feelings of the chitta to change in accordance with the endless things that it contacts. Thus, living in a village or a town with many men and women causes it to have feelings of one sort, but going to live in wild hills and jungles, or in lonely places such as a cremation ground or forests, where there are many tigers, causes different kinds of feelings to arise. Chapter 2. Training the Mind. It is necessary to have many different methods and ways of training and constraining the chitta in order to be competent to deal with the deceptive tricks of the many different kinds of kilesas which dwell in the chitta and which display themselves in all situations and in different ways according to type. If one is observant, one will see that the chitta is the meeting place of all affairs, and this causes one much disturbance, so that one can never have any time to be quiet and relax even for a moment. In general, these affairs are of a low, unworthy nature, which lay in wait to draw and divert one's activities in their direction, and they hardly have anything of the teaching of Dhamma within them, which could bring one some calm and peace of heart. So one who intends to find out everything that is false and true must be a person who observes the chitta, and who trains and disciplines the chitta in various different ways. The Lord Buddha and the Sāvakas are the most excellent examples of this to all of us who practice the way, for they liked to stay in the forest until they became used to it. In truth, the feelings of all people are likely to be much the same, for nobody by himself would normally like to go and live in the forests, hills, or lonely places that nobody in the world wants. But the bhikkhu only thinks about and does this because he has the purpose of becoming a good and worthy person with faith and confidence in himself, with thoughts and actions that he sees will be of value to himself and others. Therefore he goes against his inclinations of heart and does it in the same way that people everywhere in the world do their work. For in truth, nobody likes to do things that are difficult both physically and mentally, but they have to do it because the necessity of it compels them, and so they have to run around busily everywhere in the world instead of just eating, living, sleeping, and lying down, which is their natural inclination. But the difficulty of training the chitta is much greater, and those who have never done it should not try to compare it with the difficulties in doing other tasks in the world. For if the time comes that one does the work of training the chitta, one may not be able to put up with the difficulty of it, and one may call it torture or an imposition. Then one may lose interest in going on with this work without ever considering the results which will come from it, and how wonderful and miraculous they are. At this point one may have seen enough of the strength and tenacity of the kilesas which are the overlords ruling the heart, to realize more and more how much tenacity and resistance they have, and how much they oppose and torment beings in the world, because training the chitta is just the work of eliminating or driving out the kilesas from the heart. But the one who drives them out does not want to do so, for the one who has for ages been the overlord, having power over the hearts of people and other beings, does not want to go, because to go and live elsewhere is not so easy as living over the heart of a person where it gets such affectionate treatment and lavish care all the time, and where it is not likely to go wanting or be hard up for anything. If it wants to admire forms, sounds, smells, tastes, feelings, and mental perceptions, aramana, of any kind, the one who is acting as the servant of the kilesas immediately runs about searching for these things to gratify them without delay. However much the cost or the credit payment, the pleasure of it satisfies the craving, and the accounts can be left to be thought about later. Thinking out and paying the accounts is the work and duty of the one who underwrites everything, but the chief who has the power makes no complaint and is not the least troubled by this. In such a situation, who can make his heart so hard, and from where can he get the steel resolve to be able to train the chitta with the thought of driving out the kilesas, those lords who are so eloquent, from the heart? Therefore, training the chitta so as to know and see with true mindfulness and wisdom that the kilesas are the enemy of the heart is a difficult training and the most difficult thing to see. In fact, one should call the work of training the chitta to torment the kilesas a life and death struggle. This work is not play, nor is it fun like sports on a playing field, and all of those who are able to know what the kilesas look like destroy them so that they die from the heart. This means such people as the Lord Buddha, and they are therefore special people. If with us ordinary people there arises the ability to destroy the kilesas so that they die from the heart, even if we do not become special people like the Lord, we must be special in the field of all the kilesas. For if the wonder of the ability to destroy the kilesas, and the wonder of the chitta which has gone beyond the power of the kilesas is within any person, such a worthy person is beyond the world. Striving in all its aspects for the purpose of capsizing the round of samsara, the vata, which is imposed on the heart, is therefore a task which is full of difficulties and torments in every way. The Kammatthana bhikkhu who opposes his natural inclinations and goes to stay in places of hardship to train himself, such as the wild forests and hills, is thus like someone living in a prison. Before he can free himself from the shackles of each of the kilesas, he must go to the limit, make or break. Training the chitta for the real truth of Dhamma is as difficult as this. Not only does he live under self-discipline, but his mode of eating food is also a discipline, because it is also an aspect of the work that he is doing, and one who is anxious to pass through and get free from the jungle of darkness and obscurity will strive to apply the discipline to develop virtue in this direction also. When eating food, even though he may be very hungry and feel like eating a lot, after he has thought and taken Dhamma into consideration, he will be sure to restrain and resign himself to eating only a little, enough to provide a balance between the needs of the body and of the chitta, and he will try to make it his constant practice to eat that small amount which suits his needs. If he should increase the amounts he takes on some occasions, he must be fully aware of it at the time, not forgetting himself. But by alternating and taking more at times and less at others, the body and mind can be kept in balance without becoming too exhausted or getting sick, which would spoil the work. Thus the chitta will at least be in balance and will develop steadily in accordance with the amount of work which is being done continually to promote it. If his ability is enough and his characteristics of perfection, vasana bharami, are well developed, he can go beyond to what his heart is intent upon. Because each method of working in the direction of Dhamma aids his development, so those who find that going on fast is to their liking and accords with their nature will try to alternate fasting, eating fully, and eating little for longer or shorter periods as they see fit. The chitta then stirs up effort every time it has an opportunity. Meanwhile, the physical body will be weakened so that his work may go ahead with facility, and so that the chitta may steadily go on increasing in evenness and clarity. Then the way of samadhi will strengthen when the time is appropriate for it, and the way of wisdom will be active, and depending on the situation, it will alternate with samadhi. Those bhikkhus who stay in the forest, in the hills, under an overhanging cliff, or in various other places, and those who reduce their intake of food, or who fast, all have Dhamma as the firm aim of the chitta, and in their various ways they are all working and striving in the direction of samadhi bhavana in their various situations and activities. They are also constantly watchful of the changes of heart that take place in association with objects that cause emotional reactions, arammana. When the heart is consistently brought up and looked after in the right way, it will steadily develop. Then samadhi will develop and become firm, and wisdom will become more skillful and widespread every time it is used. Things which were never known before become known, never seen before are seen, and never existed before then arise in the heart, which is continually searching for the truth wholeheartedly with complete commitment. Then the laziness and weakness, the distraction and instability, the confusion, restlessness, darkness, and obscurity which are normally always present in the ordinary chitta gradually fade away day by day, until it can be seen clearly how much they have disappeared. But in particular, for those who discipline the heart by means of fear, for those who fast for many days, depending on their suitability for this practice, and also those who discipline themselves by sitting for a long time and investigating the resulting painful feelings, dukkha vedana, as the object of attention, arammana, the results which they get from each of these three methods are unusually wonderful, and far more so than come from other forms of discipline. But they will be explained later on as the occasion demands. Here we will describe the general way in which the bhikkhus practice. The way in which they train and discipline their hearts by the foregoing methods depends on the technique which each individual thinks out for himself to train himself, and this is different for each person. Some of them, as well as going to live in fearful forests and hills, also think up special methods to suit the time, place, and circumstances, and increase their effectiveness. Thus, for example, in such a place at night, when fear arises in the chitta, they may go and walk in another part of the forest, in order to discipline the fear which was getting stronger, by going and sitting in samadhi bhavana on a rock on top of a hill or in the open, or by walking jangama in various places where large tigers pass by, and doing this for a long time. At the same time, the chitta examines the nature of fear and death, and it also looks into the nature of tigers, which the chitta assumes to be so frightening, and the nature of oneself by asking in what way the tiger is so different that one should be so afraid. One must investigate this by dividing up the different parts and comparing these things which the chitta thinks are so different. Thus, for example, what is it that the tiger has that is frightening? What about its teeth? I also have teeth. What about its claws? I also have nails. Its hair? I also have hair. Its head, its body, its eyes, its stripes. I also have tattoos and birthmarks. As for the tail, even the tiger itself is not afraid of it, so why should I be? As far as the heart of the tiger and my own heart are concerned, they are both alike. Indeed, my heart is that of a man, a bhikkhu, which has a much higher value. Even though the various parts of the body are not identically the same, yet the elements of which they are made are the same, and there is not enough difference between the tiger and myself to justify this fear of each other. The heart of the tiger is the heart of an animal, whereas my heart is the heart of a bhikkhu with Dhamma in it, so it has value and power far beyond that of a tiger. Why then should I turn round and lower my value and status as a bhikkhu by being afraid of a tiger which is only an animal? Is this not degrading to one who is a complete bhikkhu? Furthermore, the sasana has such wonderful excellence throughout the three worlds, but in it there is a bhikkhu who is timid and frightened, who is a blemish on it, who stains it and gives it a bad name, and who also degrades it. To degrade the sasana, which is the priceless treasure of the three worlds, by being more concerned for one's life than for Dhamma, is not right and proper, and if I am to die, I would do so in bad spirits and stupid, without any dignity in myself or in the circle of the sasana at all. The Kammatthana bhikkhu who dies in this way is said to die in the manner of one who sells himself and one who sells the sasana, and all those who practice the way everywhere. This is not dying in the manner of a warrior in battle who firmly believes in Dhamma and who courageously faces up to whatever is about to happen. I am a Kammatthana bhikkhu in all respects, and I ought not to die in such a way, but rather in the manner of a warrior, ending my life in battle with bravery and courage, and this will be for the honor of myself and the sasana, as a symbol for the world to uphold for a long time. I must think rightly and see clearly the nature of both the tiger and myself, all the parts of its body and of my own, as well as the fear of death which penetrates and possesses me inwardly. I must see this quite clearly with wisdom, not letting this fear inundate me and play with me and then pass by in vain, for this would spoil my standing as a son of the Tathagata and as a full Kammatthana bhikkhu. So whatever happens, I must fight to the end, until I see either victory or defeat, and life or death today. Whichever way it goes, whether the side which brings power and honor to me and credit to the sasana, or the side which destroys both myself and the sasana because of this fear, I shall know tonight, and now I must contemplate and investigate and go on working it out until it breaks apart. While the contemplation and analysis are going on, turning around and about, sorting out the elements, the khandhas, fearlessness and fear, and searching for the underlying principle of truth with meticulous care and a resolute heart, the heart begins to know and understand from the wisdom which is continually teaching it all the time without letting up, until the heart goes quiet and peaceful, and all the previous anxiety disappears, resulting in a state of calm and happiness. All the emotionally charged images based on memory, sanya aramana, which one had formerly believed in various ways, then disappear entirely, leaving only calm and happiness of the chitta which appears noble and dignified. The chitta then gains faith in the method of contemplation which is the cause of this state, and it sees that it truly is the way to get rid of confusion and the tendency to run about searching for excitement and trouble, and also fear. It also gains faith in the results which arise at that time, that this is a state of calm and happiness of a strange and unusual kind which I have never experienced before, and I did this contemplation by taking fear as the motivating cause. This is a method which the bhikkhus use to get rid of fear, until they see the results of it for themselves. But in the beginning stages of training in the way of Kammatthana, they use a preliminary meditation, Parikamma Bhavana, on some aspect of Dhamma such as Buddha when a lot of fear arises, rather than the method of contemplation. This can result in the attainment of calm and the dispersal of fear in the same way, but it differs in that one gains no skillful or clever methods, such as one gets from the way of contemplation. Some bhikkhus, when fear arises while they are sitting under the mosquito net, lift it up and sit without any cover. They put up with the bites of the gadflies and mosquitoes, for nothing else matters but the resolve to practice their meditation using various methods to defeat the fear that is there at that time, until they succeed. Then they stop and rest. The chitta which gains calm by training and discipline based on fear seems to gain a deeper and more subtle state of calm, which lasts much longer than the calm attained by the usual methods of meditation. While the chitta is in the deepest state of calm, in the above example, it feels as if the body has completely disappeared, and the contact, sampassa, between the internal and external fields of sensation, ayatana, ceases until the chitta draws away from this state, after which they start to function again as normal. The state of the chitta in which the functions of the fields of sensation cease closely resembles a state of sleep, although it is not the same thing, for when one sleeps nothing very strange and unusual happens, but when the chitta is completely calm something very strange and unusual manifests, and there is only knowing in that state of calm at that time. The generally accepted results that come from normal sleep are different from the subtle state of calm of the chitta which those who practice get from their samadhi meditation. Those results always stick in mind and make them long for this state which is never tasteless or insipid. It is results such as these that make those who have experienced them resolute and courageous in their methods of training and discipline, which they apply to themselves on future occasions by following the same pattern of practice, and they will never give in to fear, however strongly it arises. In fact, they will rather take fear as a reminder which prompts them to both overcome that fear and to grasp victory in order to be the master with honor and dignity, as they have done so before. This is the reason which induces them to search for frightening places in which to develop themselves, and the more frightening a place is, the more are they determined to go and stay in such a place and do their practice there, because even though the heart is displaying a bold, venturesome spirit, training it by means of fear until a fearless courage arises quite clearly, using the methods of mindfulness and wisdom which are competent to deal with all the tricks within it, is something that is most desirable to them. When I said that these places are frightening, I mean this in truth, because they are forests where tigers live and like to go wandering about in search for food, coming and going all the time. In some places, they wander about even in broad daylight, but much more so at night when these areas are their natural hunting ground, and they are not afraid of people, which they are in the daytime. But in general, they are just not very interested in people, but rather in animals, which they look on as their natural food. So even though they go back and forth round about where a bhikkhu is staying, he would hardly know they were there unless they roar or growl. But it is a natural instinct of man to think of tigers as fierce wild animals, and in those circumstances, who could avoid thinking and being afraid of them? For as soon as he enters such a place, a bhikkhu knows very well that I have entered the tiger's jungle. Under such circumstances, who could be so fearless as to stay there relaxed and at ease as if he were in an ordinary marketplace? He is bound to think of them with mistrust and fear all the time. The skilled Dhotanga bhikkhu is very skilled indeed, and is worthy of a lot of respect and faith. When walking Chankama and tigers roar in the area where he is staying, he still keeps on walking as if nothing had happened, and when later someone questions him about it, he answers quite casually with good reasoning, so that when asked a question such as, "Tigers are fierce animals which can bite and eat both animals and men, and I've often heard of them taking and eating people. How then can you walk Chankama in such an unconcerned manner? Do you have a magic spell so that the tiger can't open its mouth to eat people? If so, please teach it to me so that when I go into the forests and hills, I need not fear the tigers and bears coming to eat me. Then I will be able to do my meditation at ease without fear. For the main difficulty in going to stay in forests and hills now is just because of fear. If I don't need to be afraid because I've got a magic spell to keep the tiger's mouth shut so it can't eat people, I'll feel a lot more easy and comfortable." He answers in an unassuming manner, "The tiger was roaring over there, whereas I was walking Chankama here. It was a few 100 meters away, or maybe a kilometer, and what is the use of being afraid? If it had come to me, roaring and acting as if it were truly about to jump on me and take me away to eat, there would be enough cause to be afraid. Wherever I've been, I've only heard the sound of them roaring in the languages of animals who have mouths, but I've never seen them acting in any way towards me that would warrant being afraid. As for magic spells, everybody has them if they would only make use of them. But for people like you, even if you went to learn such spells from Lady Sullivan in heaven, as soon as you went into the forest and just heard the roar of a tiger, you would run for your life, taking the magic spells with you. However powerful these spells may be, they would be carried off by a timid person afraid of death, running so hard that his robes fall off, and the spells would all be lost and forgotten. Even if I had any magic spells as a protection, I would never think of giving them to someone like you, for I am afraid that you would take them and ruin them completely. However good a magic spell might be, if the person is incompetent, the spell cannot help in any way. Like someone who has a gun slung over his shoulder in case of danger, but when the time comes he doesn't know how to use it, so the gun is of no help to him. Here, we are just talking about tigers and ghosts, and you have already started to get frightened and beginning to shiver. How then could you have the presence of mind to recall a magic spell to protect yourself? You would think only of running away, which is so shameful that you would never forget it. I don't think in the same way as you. For if I did, I would also have to go about learning magic methods and spells to subjugate tigers and various other animals, without having any interest or concern for overcoming the fear which is an internal danger, so that it may be cured by various methods, until finally I would just be an incompetent person without any self-esteem for the rest of my life. When one thinks about it, it makes one ashamed that tigers should be more powerful than man. For many people are frightened of their power when they are just lying down or growling in their animal language, or having fun and playing together. One feels that a good tiger has many times more power than an incompetent person who wants to learn magic spells from such a bhikkhu, but the answer they get should be a valuable lesson to them for a long time. Previously, the chitta of such a bhikkhu would have been accustomed to jumping about and running everywhere with bold obstinacy and without any bounds or limits. But when he has trained it with persistent effort until it submits and becomes docile and responsive to reason and the ways of Dhamma, he is not disturbed or frightened by the various things which happen to people, and which they are always liable to meet up with. He can live anywhere or go anywhere, whatever the conditions may be. In the forests and hills where timid people dare not go, he can live comfortably, and look on it as a place of refuge where he can relax, recover, and develop the true practices of a bhikkhu, samarna Dhamma, in a satisfactory way all the time. Those who are concerned to become good and developed people should thus take up the way of doing things of such a bhikkhu as their own path, although it is not essential to go and live in the forests or hills like him. But the methods and means of training oneself in various activities and duties so that one shall become a good person with firmly established basic principles within, both in the present and the future, is something which can be taught and received from others. Otherwise the Lord Buddha would have had no way to proclaim Dhamma and teach the world, because nobody else has the ability to practice in the same way as the Lord. But there are those who take up the principles of Dhamma and then go and practice them as a follower of the Lord until they become the best of men. They are good people who uphold the traditions in the circle of Buddhist followers right up to the present day, and it is generally accepted that there are a very large number of them who have gained the results from doing the practice which come from the Lord in the manner of a pupil following a teacher. The various methods of training and asceticism which each individual uses to develop his citta are chosen by each one depending on his need and ability. However, the Thutanga bhikkhus in the lineage of Venerable Ajaan Mun have always followed his ways of practice without discarding any of them, right up to the present time. Concerning the aforementioned bhikkhu who found it hard to believe that the other bhikkhu could walk jankama and be able to compete with the sounds of tigers roaring, and thus thought that he had a magic spell to lock up the mouths of the tigers, in fact he genuinely thought like this, because he was very afraid of the tigers when he heard them roar in the vicinity of where he was staying, even though they did not come close to him. He therefore had to ask such a question. When several Thutanga bhikkhus meet and talk Dhamma together on a suitable occasion, it is very interesting to listen to, for the Dhamma which comes from the heart and arises from the way of practice, for the asceticism and the types of ascetic training of the citta in various different ways, for the courage and fear which arise at various different times, and for the sufferings and difficulties at those times when the body is pushed to the limit of endurance. But the most important thing is the Dhamma within. This means the samadhi and wisdom which each one of them has experienced in his own way in various places. When they talk together about their experiences, each one from the ground level of his own citta and Dhamma, it is so absorbing that one forgets the time and the aches and pains of sitting on the floor for a long time. In some cases, but not many, a bhikkhu talks of his citta dropping into a state of calm in 3 distinct stages to attain the full state of samadhi. Thus, in the first stage, it becomes mildly calm, such that there is a relaxed well-being. In the second stage, the calm and well-being increase in a manner that is clearly evident. When it gets to the third and final stage, the body vanishes, and it feels as if one has no body. The fields of sensation, ayatana, also cease to function, and there remains only knowing of a subtle and most wonderful kind, which is beyond all description. This is what they call the full ground of samadhi, and it is the type which can form a firm and stable foundation for the citta. The heart which goes down into a complete state of calm at a ground level such as this will generally rest there for several hours before rising out of it. Sometimes it may stay there for as much as 12 hours. Some may wonder whether the body would not be very painful and stiff when the citta withdraws from samadhi after sitting in one posture without any change for many hours. What in fact happens to the citta and the khanthas is as follows. When the citta goes into a state of rest and calms down until it reaches full samadhi as related above, the citta and the body do not react to any disturbance from anything whatsoever. Then the integration of the citta and of the physical elements, the dhatu, as they exist in that time, are understood to be much more subtle than when one is in deep sleep. This is so because sometimes after sleeping for a long time, when one wakes, one still feels aches and pains in those parts of the body upon which one was lying. But when the citta withdraws from this type of samadhi, there are no aches or pains of any sort at all, every part of the body being in its normal, natural state. This gives one good reason to believe in the truth about those bhikkhus who are said to enter into complete cessation, nirodha samapatti, for several days. For it is said that, firstly, they can in fact remain in samadhi for such a long time, and secondly, their health and body remain normal without any weakness or harm from it whatsoever.